the EM10 Mark II, the EM5 Mark II, the EM1 original, and the EM1 Mark II. That's on the Olympus side. On the Panasonic side, I think the good value cameras are the G7 and the G85. I hope in this video we will clear up the differences between these models and help you make an educated decision. I believe these are the most important factors for choosing a Micro Four Thirds camera. First, the sensor. I am not too concerned with the number of megapixels, but rather the improvements to dynamic range, image quality, and in general, features and autofocus performance that have come with the newer camera bodies. I would go for a camera with at least 16 megapixels. If you need the cameras to be environmentally sealed, that's going to make your decision a lot easier. And as we go through this video, I will highlight the cameras that are weather sealed. Image stabilization is one of the strengths of the Micro Four Thirds system and is one of the reasons for buying these cameras in the first place. Some of these bodies feature really impressive image stabilization. Finally, there's ergonomics and handling. I cannot stress that even though we're going to be talking about specs, and you can compare specs until you're blue in the face, nothing beats actually going to a physical store and trying one of these cameras. When I saw Micro Four Thirds cameras for the first time, I was blown away by how tiny they were. On the Olympus side, we have the pen cameras that typically do not have an electronic viewfinder, although you can sometimes get one optionally. We also have the OMD series, reminiscent of the classic Olympus SLRs. That's where most of the attention goes. You can still buy these new today versus the pen series, which hasn't been updated in quite some time. On the Panasonic side, we have something very similar. We have the Rangefinder style of cameras, and then we also have the SLR style of cameras. Now these are all mirrorless cameras. I'm not saying they're rangefinders or SLRs, it's just the way they're styled. The SLR style cameras have the viewfinder in the middle, and the rangefinder style cameras have the viewfinder off to the side. All four of these groups have many different camera lines. Now that we've divided them, let's conquer them one by one. For each camera, we're going to take a look at the year it was originally released, the megapixel count, MP, the weight in grams, the SEPA rated battery life, number of shots, whether it has in-body image stabilization, what the maximum frames per second continuous shooting is, how many autofocus points it has, whether the autofocus is CD, contrast detect, PD, phase detect, or both, whether the LCD is fixed, the LCD resolution, whether the camera has an electronic viewfinder, or if there's one optionally available, the maximum available video specification, for example 1080p, 60 FPS, and the CPU version. Obviously, if you're shopping locally, you're going to find a better deal. Prices fluctuate all the time. Don't take these prices as gospel. This is just a rough benchmark for where they are. And we're going to go down the list. We have the EPM1, the EPM2, EPL. I had a bunch of those. I'm just going to breeze through these really quick, otherwise the video is going to be super long. You can always freeze the video right here and compare the specs for yourself. I've highlighted the Pen F at the bottom because of all the cameras in this lineup, the clear winner, at least for me. I don't think the value is there because it's still commanding a price of $750 on the used market. But as you can see, it's different from all the other cameras. It's the only one with a built-in electronic viewfinder. It has an impressive amount of autofocus points, shoots 10 FPS, and it has that newer 20 megapixel sensor. It's a very sexy camera. You can tell the engineers just had a lot of fun designing it. So once again, we start with the EM10, then we have the EM10 Mark II, EM10 Mark III, EM10 Mark IV, EM5, Mark II, Mark III, the OM5, which was released by OM Digital Solutions. They're not actually allowed to call the cameras Olympus anymore, which is pretty lame. So the OM5 is a continuation of the EM5 line. The EM1 is the more professional lineup. We have the EM1 Mark II, EM1 Mark III, OM1, and finally the EM1X. The new prices are all over the place because sometimes there are sales, sometimes not. I've done my best to focus on body-only prices. Now, in this table alone, I think we have 4 of the 6 best value micro four thirds cameras, starting with the EM10 Mark II. The second version of any product line is going to be a lot more polished than the first, and in the case of Olympus, these cameras are no exception. The EM10 Mark II at $250 used is a really compelling proposition, especially if you need a little camera to pack around for hiking or travel. Notice there's a WR column, weather resistance. This camera is not weather resistant, while the other 3 cameras highlighted are. What if you want to spend a little more? It's easy to make a case for the EM5 Mark III because there were some significant improvements, and as you can see from the specs alone, the addition of phase detect autofocus, the availability of 4K video, the bump in processor speed, the increase in number of autofocus points, the increase in max FPS, the additional stops of IBIS. However, at $650 used versus $350, well, that's a price calculation you'll have to make for yourself. It's much harder to make an argument for the EM10 Mark III versus the EM10 Mark II. A lot of Olympus shooters even prefer the EM10 Mark II because they are a fan of its more robust construction. Now the EM1 series is where I would personally go because I feel like these cameras are just more ergonomic for me. The EM1 is still a great camera, especially if you're not shooting fast-moving subjects. If you have good light and you're shooting still subjects, the EM1 Mark I is still an amazing camera today. The EM1 Mark II is an improvement, and it does take things to the next level. It has that additional card slot, it has an articulated screen, it has 4K video, it has a headphone jack. So if you need that better autofocus performance, then the EM1 Mark II is a clear winner for moving subjects and for video shooters. Otherwise, you can still get a great deal on the EM1 Mark I. Of all the cameras in this video, maybe the EM1 Mark I is probably the best value today. Although those are fighting words, I would love to hear what you think in the comment section. Here I've put up the EM10 Mark II and the EM5 Mark II so you can compare. If you look at the placement of this customizable button on the back, that's a natural place to have your back button focus. So if you're used to your thumb back button focusing on your existing SLR system, well, I think that button there makes the EM5 a clear winner, not to mention the fact that it's weather sealed. The EM10 Mark II, however, is still very capable, and as you can see from the control layouts, it's still highly customizable, and it's a great choice. Comparing the EM1 to the EM1 Mark II, right away you can see that this line of flagship cameras has that deeper grip. Now we're getting to the Rangefinder style Panasonic cameras, and once again I'm just gonna breeze down the list. The GF1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the GM1, GM5, the GX80/GX85, GX1, GX7, GX8, and GX9. Now, of all the cameras on this list, the GX80, also called the GX85, would be my personal choice, and at $300 used, it's a seriously compelling option. Has in-body stabilization, which, as you can see from the IBIS column, is not that common. Has 49 autofocus points, high resolution LCD, and shoots 4K video, and has a built-in electronic viewfinder. And it looks like this, and when you combine it with some of Panasonic's compact lenses, like the 12 to 32 that you see pictured here, it is a very compelling proposition. We are on the SLR style Panasonic cameras, starting with the G10, G1, G2, G3, G5, G6, G7, G80, also called the G85, G90, G100, the GH series, which are a professional video line of cameras. The last cameras released were not actually that long ago, the GH5 Mark II and the GH6. If you're a video professional, you already know about these cameras, but if you're just picking a camera for photography or even hybrid photo video, these cameras are probably overkill. So I've highlighted 3. I know we didn't mention the GH4 at the beginning of the video, but I just want to point out that the GH4, if you are interested in professional video work, at $350 used is a pretty compelling option. Now the 2 cameras we pointed out at the beginning were the G7 and the G80/G85. Now the G85 is more expensive, $400 used versus the G7's $275. But for that extra $125, you're getting a lot. First of all, you're getting 5 stops of in-body image stabilization, which is missing on the G7. You're also getting weather resistance. So just those two features alone, I think, are enough to tip the scales. There's a reason the Panasonic G7 was a standard recommendation for those looking to get into basic videography or cinematography at $275 used, and it often even comes with a lens at that price. You're getting a high quality 4K capable camera with an articulating touchscreen and a microphone jack. Finally, we have some comparisons between the G7 and the G85 just to show that the control layout is actually very similar between the two. If you have experience with Micro Four Thirds, let us know what you think in the comments section, and as always, thank you for watching and subscribe for more.